Hello, everybody. Welcome to this talk. This talk, entitled The Second Trithemius, the Rosicrucian Master, is the third of the series of 5 talks I'm giving this year on Rosicrucian cryptography to celebrate the quatercentenary of the publication in 1624 of the great cipher manual Cryptomenytices and Cryptographiae, which is Latin for Cryptomenytics and Cryptography. The extra special thing about this great cipher manual is that it provides keys to help us discover and decipher the cryptography in publications such as the 1623 Twin Folios, Francis Bacon's De Dignitate et Augmentis Scientiarum, and the Shakespeare First Folio, Mr. William Shakespeare's Comedies, Histories, and Tragedies, and also other books authored by members of the Rosicrucian fraternity. Moreover, it provides keys to types of cryptography that are still being used today. As I explained in my previous talks, this publication of Cryptomenytices and Cryptographiae occurred the year after the publication of the 1623 Twin Folios, Shakespeare First Folio and Francis Bacon's De Dignitate et Augmentis Scientiarum. In 1623 was when a great conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter occurred in the zodiac sign of Leo, and 1624 was the year immediately following. As such, the years 1623 and 1624 acted as twins, like an in-breath and an out-breath, with the celestial events in the sky being purposely twinned on Earth by these special Rosicrucian Folio publications. I'm going to share my screen now. Now, the great cipher manual, Cryptomenytices and Cryptographiae, meaning Cryptomenytics and Cryptography, was compiled and written by Augustus the Younger, Duke of Brunswick-Lüneburg, when he resided at Hitzacker, and before he became Prince of Brunswick-Wolfenbüttel in 1634 and Prince of Lüneburg in 1636. The book was published in nearby Lüneburg in folio format and using Duke Augustus's pseudonym Gustavus Silanus as the author. Now, this pseudonym, Gustavus Silanus, had previously been used by the Duke for his chess manual, Das Schach oder Königsspiel, the chess or king's game, which was published in Leipzig in 1616. This manual also contained Rhythmomachia, an early European mathematical board game known as the Philosopher's Game. Its title page is of a similar design to that of Cryptomenytices and Cryptographiae title page, and both contain a great deal of cryptography. The pseudonym Gustavus Silanus is itself an example of cryptography, wherein Gustavus is an anagram of the Duke's name, Augustus, and Silanus is a symbolic synonym for the town, Lüneburg, as in medieval Latin texts, the town was also called Selenopolis. The town was also referred to as the City of the Moon. Luna is the Latin name for the goddess of the moon, and Selena is the Greek name for the goddess of the moon. Selenopolis could also mean the salt town, because the Latin word for salt is sal, which can be phonetically pronounced as sel, as in the French word for salt. And this is because the town was built on top of a large deposit of salt, which was an extremely valuable commodity in those days, and was the town's main source of revenue. And because the town was on the river Ilmenau, which flowed into the river Elbe, which then flowed on to Hamburg, and from thence out into the North Sea, the town was a member of the Hanseatic League until the league gradually dissolved in the 17th century. Tributary poems to Duke Augustus in the prefacing pages of Cryptomenytices and Cryptographiae make use of all these punning allusions, and more. For instance, in a jest upon the name Silenus, these tributary poems liken the Duke to the satyr Silenus, who, to quote, surpassed Phoebus and Orpheus with song. Silenus was a member of Dionysus's retinue and a companion and tutor of Dionysus. He is reputed to have immense knowledge, knowing both the past and future, and was capable of revealing the destiny of anyone who could successfully tie him up during the heavy slumber that followed his bouts of drinking. Now, the drinking refers to the Dionysian drinking of wine. And in the mystery schools, wine is a metaphor for spiritual knowledge or illumination. Hence, Silenus's bouts of drinking cryptically refer to the times he reached a high state of illumination in which truth was revealed to him. The tributary poems also liken the Duke to Selene, goddess of the moon, referring to him as Luna, Diana, Phoebe, and saying that just as the goddess of the moon lights the world by night with her rays, so Silenus, beneath the simple name of Gustavus, illuminates the whole world with his sacred writings. This lunar attribute is associated with the Rosicrucians, who convey their news in the form of poetry, poetry being a name embracing many forms, all of which convey wisdom in a cryptic way, and are designed to inspire and entertain, so as to encourage others to think deeply and seek out the truth. And Ben Jonson refers to this jestingly in his masque, News from the New World Discovered in the Moon, which was first performed at court on the 7th of January, 1620. And the masque opens with a conversation between two heralds, a printer, a chronicler, and a factor. A factor is a kind of columnist or correspondent. And their conversation concludes with the first herald saying, "The brethren of the Rosy Cross have their college within a mile of the moon, a castle in the air that runs upon wheels with a winged lanthorn." And the printer replies, "I have seen it in print." The brethren of the Rosy Cross were known as moonmen. And in the introductory poems of Cryptomenytices, the author, Duke Augustus, is described in Latin as Homo Lunae, meaning moonman. In other words, he was a member of the fraternity. The Rosicrucians were Kabbalists, and Kabbalah, a Hebraic word meaning received wisdom, is symbolized by the moon, which receives its light from the sun, just as the mind receives its wisdom or light from the heart. The heart is symbolized by the sun, the mind by the moon. It is the mind or soul that hears and then sees the wisdom as a vision or idea, and then, after the idea has been put into practice, knows that wisdom or something of it. As Francis Bacon said, this is the double truth: the truth of being, the sun, and the truth of knowing, the moon. The knower can then become like another sun, shining his or her light of wisdom knowledge to others, just as Silenus did. From this, we can see that Duke Augustus's carefully chosen pseudonym, Gustavus Silenus, provides many good examples of cryptography, namely pseudonym, anonym, anagram, symbolism, synonym, allusion, eponym, metonym, linguistics. But this is just a start, a taster, as they say. Like the Das Schach oder Königspiel title page, the title page of Cryptomenytices et Cryptographiae is itself an example of cryptology of various types, one of them being pictorial, as illustrated by the 4 pictures that surround the central panel of text, and another being geometric and numerical, forming a structure that underlies the engraved pictures. According to letters found in the Duke's famous library at Wolfenbüttel, where he lived from 1644 onwards, Augustus wrote to his literary agent, Philipp Heinhofer of Augsburg, giving instructions for the engraving of the Cryptomenytites title page picture plates. One of the plates was to be of the abbot Trithemius. With the abbot shown, the Duke wrote, seated at a table writing, with someone who should resemble Gustavus Silenus himself standing behind him holding his cap or mitre a little above his head. And the portrait of Trithemius was to be derived from a recently published book in the Duke's collection. Other pictures, the Duke wrote, should represent the post, or a courier carrying letters here, there, on foot, on land, on water, as letters are dispatched, and also what is appropriate for sending secret letters. The bottom panel of the Cryptomenytites et Cryptographiae title page shows the Duke and Trithemius, and the top panel and 2 side panels depict couriers on foot, land, and water, and a post on horseback. But there is more than this, which presumably addresses the extra sentence that says, and also what is appropriate for sending secret letters. So let's look at the panels in detail. The title page's right-hand panel, which is on your left as you view it, shows a courier on foot receiving a message from a nobleman. The nobleman wears a high hat, lace collar, long cloak, doublet, jerkin, Spanish breeches, gartered silk stockings, and nobleman's shoes. The nobleman's right hand is handing a letter to the courier, whilst his left hand rests on the hilt of his longsword that hangs on his left-hand side. His feet are disposed at right angles to each other, with his right foot in front and pointing forward, which is a Freemasonic stance. The courier is shown receiving the message in his right hand, whilst his left hand holds a hat, which he has removed in the presence of the nobleman, and also a long spear. Beyond him in the middle distance is another courier, walking with a hat on his head, a pack on his back, a walking stick known as a wagstaff in his right hand, and a long staff or walking staff flung over his left shoulder and held by his left hand. And in the far distance is a city with a figure walking up to the city gate. And beyond the city is a gentle sloping flat-topped mountain. Whilst flying overhead is a bird bearing a sheet of paper inscribed with a message in its beak, with a bolt shot from a crossbow flying towards it, clearly aimed to shoot the bird down if possible. Now, interestingly, all 5 devices shown in this picture, the longsword, broad spear, shot bolt, wagstaff, and walking staff, are mentioned in one single 10-line paragraph on page 111 in a chapter on surnames in the 3rd edition of William Camden's Remains that was published in 1623. So here's the paragraph at the bottom of the page, 10-line paragraph. So to read from it, some, that means some are derived from, some from that which they commonly carried as palmer, that is pilgrim, for that they carried palm when they returned from Jerusalem, long sword, broad spear, fortescue, that is strong shield, and in some such respect, break spear, Shakespeare, shot holt, wagstaff, bagot in the Old Norman. The same with Scipio, that is a stay or walking staff with the Latins, which became a surname, for that Cornelius served as a stay to his blind father. Likewise billman, hookman, talver of a shield so called, whereof William, son of Robert de Bellisma, Earl of Shrewsbury, had his name. This paragraph also points out that the hyphenated name Shakespeare is derived from a person who carries and shakes a spear. And this hyphenated form of Shakespeare, which still appears hyphenated in other editions of Camden's Remains when appearing more centrally on a line of text, was the form used by the author of the Shakespeare works on many of the quarto title pages of plays, and also in the title of Shakespeare's sonnets. And this fact distinguishes it from the family name of the actor from Stratford-upon-Avon, the presumed author of the Shakespeare works, whose family name, Shakespeare or Shakespeare, is derived from the name of a place. However, the actor Shakespeare allowed himself to be identified with the name Shakespeare as he agreed to act as a mask for the real author or authors. This agreement appears to have happened in 1597, when the Queen was furious about the scene in the play Richard II, which related to the dethronement of the reigning monarch. This scene had been printed in the 1597 first quarto edition of Richard II, which was published anonymously, as had all the plays published up to then, which were later identified as Shakespeare plays. When the play was republished the next year, 1598, this second quarto edition omitted the offending scene and carried the hyphenated name William Shakespeare on its title page. Likewise, the play Richard III was also republished in 1598, its first quarto having been published in 1597 with no author's name on the title page, and its second quarto published in 1598 with the hyphenated name William Shakespeare on its title. The first quarto of Love's Labour's Lost was also published in 1598, but with the unhyphenated form of the name W. Shakespeare, without an A in Spear, on its title page, which makes a link with the actor Shakespeare, presumably so that people should think that the actor is the author. William Camden was an authority on all such matters, as he was an English antiquarian, historian, topographer, and Clarenzo King of Arms from May 1597 until his death on the 9th of November 1623. He was also a cryptographer and a great friend of Francis Bacon. That Camden was in the know about the Rosicrucian Bacon-Shakespeare scheme is shown not only because his special third edition of Remains was published the same year, 1623, as Bacon's De Dignitate et Augmentis Scientiarum and the Shakespeare First Folio, but also because of the cryptology of the last 10-line paragraph of page 111. The cipher 111 or 111 is the simple cipher AAA, the triple A, which, like the double A, AA, is the signature of the Rosicrucians. As the double A, it appears in many headpieces of books by Francis Bacon and the Rosicrucians, including the 1623 Shakespeare Folio. 111 is also the K cipher of Bacon. 111 is also the K cipher of the word free, which is the final word spoken by Prospero in the Shakespeare play The Tempest. And free is the meaning of the name Francis. The K cipher is so called because it starts its number count with the letter K, which has a numerical value of 10. And this K cipher is referenced by Camden by the 10 lines of this last paragraph on page 111 of his Remains. And 10 is also referenced to the 10 Sephiroth, or emanations of the Tree of Life. The name Shakespeare is split between two lines. Shake is the 11th word on the 4th line of the 10-line paragraph, which is the 32nd line of the page of text. And spear is the first word on the 5th line of the 10-line paragraph, which is the 33rd line of the page of text. 32 is the total number of degrees required to climb the Kabbalistic tree of life, with the 33rd degree, the highest degree, referred to as going beyond. And 11 and 1 give 111, the K cipher of Bacon. And the name Shakespeare is the 6th of the 13 names Camden provides as examples of surnames derived from what a person carries. And 6 is the simple cipher of the letter F, which, with the 111 K cipher of Bacon, produces F. Bacon, i.e. Francis Bacon. As if this isn't enough, the name William appears on the 37th line of the page. And 37 is the number of degrees in one of the 3 angles of the 3 to 4 to 5 right-angled triangle, known in Freemasonry as the gallows square. The two cipher systems, simple and K, are referred to by Francis Bacon in his 1623 De Dignitate et Augmentis Scientiarum. They are also mentioned by Duke Augustus in his 1624 Cryptomenytices et Cryptographiae, together with additional pointers to the Shakespeare mystery. And Duke Augustus certainly knew of Camden, and may even have met him when he was in London in 1603. The Duke mentions Camden in Camden's book Britannia on page 16, chapter 1, book 2 of Cryptomenytices et Cryptographiae, in connection with Hadrian's War and secret communication by means of pipes. Because of the cryptic references in this right-hand panel of the Cryptomenytices title page, it suggests that the nobleman shown passing the letter to the courier is Francis Bacon. who was given the title Viscount St. Alban in 1620, in recognition of him being the founder and first Grand Master of speculative Freemasonry, just as the original St. Alban had been the founder and first Grand Master of operative Freemasonry in Roman Britain. This then makes sense of the nobleman's feet, which are arranged to form a Freemasonic square on the ground, which can be seen as either a tri-square, i.e. a T-square, which is that of a Master Mason, or a gallows square, i.e. the right-angled triangle with sides in the ratio 3:4:5, which is the past masters or ascended masters square of the higher degrees. And the title page's left-hand panel shows a messenger on horseback, known as a post, who has galloped along fast on land and is just arriving at his destination, blowing his horn to alert his arrival. The rider is suitably clothed as a post, and on his right heel is a spur, as one would expect. But it and the rider's boot are carefully shown in light against a background of shadow so as to make them stand out. As the word spur can often be similar in sound to the word spear, it twins the spear held by the courier receiving the message from Francis Bacon in the right-hand panel, thereby showing that the actor Shakespeare, whose family name is spelled either as Shakespeare or else as Shakespeare, acted as a courier or post. In other words, this cryptic message tells us that the actor cum businessman Shakespeare, or Shakespeare, worked as a Shakespeare messenger for Francis Bacon, so as to deliver Bacon's messages to others, these messages being the Shakespeare plays in particular. In the middle distance of the left-hand panel is a city, and in the far distance is a rocky mountain. In this way, by depicting the beginning of the messenger service in the right-hand panel and the arrival at the destination in the left-hand panel, the twin side panels represent the Alpha and Omega, similar to the symbolism of the twin great pillars of Solomon's temple, Jachin and Boaz. Jachin and Boaz are the twin pillars, called the Great Pillars, that stand at the entrance to Solomon's temple. Likewise, the title page is a gateway, an entrance into a temple wherein truth might be revealed. The bottom panel, therefore, is equivalent to the threshold and foundation of the cryptographic temple, whilst the top panel is equivalent to the lintel and tympanum, and each has their own mystery and message to give. So let's look at the bottom panel. The bottom panel of the Cryptomenytices and Cryptographiae title page shows the abbot Trithemius at his desk writing, with Gustavus Silanus, that is Duke Augustus, standing behind him and holding the abbot's cap or mitre a little above Trithemius's head, all as the Duke instructed the engraver to do. And what Trithemius is writing is, presumably, the secret message that is to be sent via the couriers and post. However, there is more to this engraving that meets the eye. In 1925, Dr. H.A.W. Speckmann, a professor of mathematics at Arnhem in Holland, who was an authority on certain cipher methods, noticed that this picture was not only an example of pictorial cryptography, but also contained a Trithemius cipher system. Dr. Speckmann noticed that Trithemius is attired like a courtier rather than as an abbot. and that Duke Augustus, alias Gustavus Silenus, is shown as if he is removing the mitre from the head of Trithemius. Moreover, the mitre, which seems to be adorned with pearls around its rim, is more suggestive of a coronet than an abbot's mitre. This suggested to Dr. Speckmann that this was a cryptographic rebus of some kind, and that the five-lettered word mitre, M-I-T-R-E, and removal of the mitre from the 10-lettered name Trithemius was a key. And supporting this idea was the use of 5 distinct panels to make up the title page. So using the number 5 as the key, Dr. Speckmann solved the rebus riddle by using one of Trithemius's 22-letter Latin alphabet transposition cipher systems, also known as the wheel cipher. The Latin cipher alphabet of 22 letters is such that I, J, and Y are the same, and U, V, and W are the same. Dr. Speckmann found that if the 5 letters of mitre, M-I-T-R-E, are removed from the 10-lettered name Trithemius, the 5 letters T-H-I-U-S remain. Then using the cipher system and transposing the letters 5 places to the right, i.e. A becomes F, B becomes G, C becomes H, etc., T-H-I-U-S becomes B-N-O-C-A, which is an anagram of bacon, B-A-C-O-N. In other words, the abbot Trithemius, who is supposedly shown here, is not the abbot Trithemius, but Bacon, meaning Sir Francis Bacon, who, because he was titled Viscount St. Alban, was entitled to wear a Viscount's coronet. And Francis Bacon, who first worked as an intelligencer for the Queen, like his brother Anthony, and who from 1592 headed an intelligence network together with his brother Anthony until Anthony died in 1601, leaving Francis in sole charge, sent many encrypted letters via courier and post all over Europe, including to Duke Augustus. Moreover, the Bacon brothers used suitably adapted Trithemius cipher systems for their messages, as well as inventing new ones. Such cipher systems are referred to by name in Francis Bacon's De Dignitate et Augmentis Scientiarum, and one of them, the biliteral, he describes in detail. And interestingly, this biliteral cipher not only gave rise to the Morse code, but also provided the basis of all computer coding. And this bottom panel picture depicting Francis Bacon as the second Trithemius also links with the pseudonym Gustavus Silenus used by Duke Augustus, as the name Bacon appeared as Bacco on Italian translations of his works. And Bacco is the Italian name for Dionysus, who was known to the Romans as Bacchus. So in this way, cryptically again, Duke Augustus is telling us that he is one of Bacon's companions, which is a reference to the name of members of the Royal Arch Degree and above, who are otherwise known as Brethren of the Rosy Cross, and that, like Silenus, he acted as a tutor to Bacon in certain things when asked. And let's look at the top panel. The top panel shows 5 men in a boat hastening away from a town at night. Not only is it nighttime and dark, but the town is sited on the coast of a lake or sea, and there is a strong wind blowing, as indicated by the flags and the smoke from the beacons. The 5 men in the boat consist of 2 oarsmen at the front, a courier in the middle, and an oarsman and a helmsman behind. This illustrates the carrying of secret messages by water. The town itself has 4 beacons lit, which is another form of messaging. Beacons are usually only lit when there is danger approaching or a town is being attacked. This in itself illustrates the kind of message that the courier in the boat is taking. But to understand the message in more detail, we should notice that 2 of the beacons are shown hanging on poles tilted towards the right of the picture, and the other 2 beacons are on poles tilted towards the left. Now remember that the picture is like another person who is facing you, so that the picture's left and right is the reverse of your left and right as you look at the picture. This left and right leaning indicates a twin ship of beacons, 2 sets of twins, one set to the right, the other set to the left. Moreover, the word beacon was, in the early 17th century, pronounced in a similar way to bacon. But more than this, 4 flags are also shown flying above the city's buildings. Both beacons and flags were used as signalling devices. The 4 flags also form 2 sets of twins, with each set containing a right-leaning beacon between its 2 flags. Then of the twin flags in each set, 1 flag is shown light, the other dark. Moreover, 3 of the flags, 1 dark, 2 light, are depicted flying from upright poles, and the 4th flag, dark, is on a left-leaning pole. And this arrangement provides a particular message using a symbolic, Kabbalistic and heraldic system of light and dark, right and left, whilst also referring to cellular division and the figure 8 or cosmic lemniscate, symbol of infinity. It is not unlike the biliteral cipher, which uses the differential idea of 2 types of font. The left-right dot dash light dark something or nothing idea. A thought that Hamlet has when he says, "To be or not to be, that is the question." Then the whole picture shows that it is nighttime, with the courier being rowed away in the darkness, which indicates that all is cryptic or Kabbalistic, and that there is an even deeper message, which we will discover by means of geometry and number. So let's look at that now. As I mentioned in my first talk in this cryptographic series, the total number of oblong squares in the underlying geometry of the Cryptomenytices and Cryptographiae title page is 32, with each oblong square being of the proportion 8 to 9, i.e. 8 units high by 9 units wide. And 32 is the total number of degrees achieved when the initiate symbolically climbs the Kabbalistic tree of life right up to the top, then goes beyond into the 33rd degree. But another thing to see in the geometry of this title page is that it is divided horizontally into 3 distinct parts, of which the smaller part, top panel, consists of 8 oblong squares, whilst the 2 larger parts, the middle and bottom panels, are made up of 12 oblong squares each. The top part of the picture, the top panel, is 2 oblong squares high by 4 oblong squares wide. As each oblong square is 8 units high by 9 units wide, this gives the top panel a measurement of 16 units high by 36 units wide. This proportion, when divided by 2, reduces to 8 times 18. When divided by 4, the proportion reduces to its least whole numbers, 4 times 9, which is the proportion of the vertical measurement to the horizontal measurement of the top panel. In other words, the rectangular top panel measures 4 by 9 in terms of its proportions, which means it has an area of 36. And 36 is a noteworthy number, as it relates to the measurement of time and also space, i.e. 360 degrees. And it is this number that is represented in the 1623 Shakespeare Folio by the number of plays it contains, which are 36. However, 8 times 18 also produces a very important and revealing number. 8 times 18 equals 144, which is a number referring to completeness, perfection. Hence the 144,000 who were redeemed and sealed with the name of God on their foreheads, who are referred to in chapter 14 of the book of Revelation, the last book of the New Testament of Christianity's Holy Bible. Alternatively, if instead of multiplying the two numbers together, we add them together, then 8 plus 18 equals 26, which is the cipher number of the Tetragrammaton, Yod He Vav He, pronounced as Jehovah, the ineffable name of God. Yod equals 10, He equals 5, Vav equals 6. Therefore, Yod He Vav He is 10 plus 5 plus 6 plus 5 equals 26. In this way, the title page of Cryptomenytices and Cryptographiae is sealed on its forehead, the top panel, with the ineffable name of God, Jehovah, thereby secretly indicating that it is not only to do with revelation, but is also a Rosicrucian publication. For the Rosicrucian motto is Sub umbra alarum tuarum Jehovah, beneath the shadow of thy wings, Jehovah, a motto that appears at the very end of the Fama Fraternitatis Rosicrucis, the fame of the Rosicross fraternity. This was the first Rosicrucian manifesto that was published in 1614 in Kassel, Hesse-Kassel, in present-day Germany. The motto is derived from Psalms 17, 36, 57, and 63. And Psalm 17 says, "Keep me as the apple of the eye, hide me under the shadow of thy wings, from the wicked that oppress me, from my deadly enemies which compass me about." Psalm 36, "How excellent is thy loving kindness, O God! Therefore the children of men put their trust under the shadow of thy wings." In Psalm 57, "Be merciful unto me, O God, be merciful unto me, for my soul trusteth in thee. Yea, in the shadow of thy wings will I make my refuge, until these calamities be overpast." And Psalm 63, "Because thou hast been my help, therefore in the shadow of thy wings will I rejoice." The wings are symbolic of the protective, loving kindness and mercy of God. This Rosicrucian motto, plus an eagle with outstretched wings, notably appears in the cryptographic emblem book, The Mirror of Majesty, which was published anonymously in 1618. The motto appears in emblem 6 on page 11, one of the two pages, 10 and 11, which face each other and are dedicated to the Lord Chancellor, who at that time was Sir Francis Bacon. Bacon, who had previously been the Lord Keeper of the Great Seal, was created Lord Chancellor on the 4th of January 1618 and given the title Baron Verulam of Verulam on 12th of July 1618. The emblem picture shows a lamb being chased by a wolf and seeking shelter beneath an eagle's outstretched wings, with the talons of the right foot of the eagle outstretched, ready to stop and strike the wolf if necessary. And in the 10th line of the 18-line verse below the picture, it says, addressing the Lord Chancellor, that "You are this eagle which o'ershades the sheep." The eagle is emblematic of the Rosicrucians, as well as Francis Bacon. And this is because the eagle is the symbol of St. John the Evangelist, also known as the Beloved or Divine, patron saint of the higher degrees of initiation, the degrees associated with Rosicrucianism. The patron saint of the lower degrees, the craft degrees of Freemasonry, is St. John the Baptist. Both Johns are associated with the poles of the earth, St. John the Evangelist with the North Pole, and St. John the Baptist with the South Pole. And both these poles are mentioned at the beginning of the first line of the 8-line verse on page 10 that describes the Lord Chancellor and relates the two poles to the two fixed stars that are depicted on each side of a crescent half moon. These three symbols are depicted on the white chief of an otherwise blank white heraldic shield that is shown above the verse. The motto also appears on the equally cryptographic title page of Speculum Sophicum Rhodostoroticum, meaning the mirror of the wisdom of the Rosy Cross, authored by the pseudonymous Theophilus Schweigart Constantians, which was also published in 1618. This time, the body of the eagle has been replaced by a radiant sun containing the 4 Hebrew letters of the Tetragrammaton, presented thrice at a 45-degree angle within the sun, thereby not only giving the ineffable name of God, Jehovah, 3 times, but also hinting at the 3 to 4 to 5 right-angled triangle known as Euclid's 47th proposition. Let's follow this. There's an enlargement here. Yod, He, Vau, He. 4 letters and repeated twice. Yod, He, Vau, He, Yod, He, Vau, He. So you've got 4 and 3. So you've got 3, 4, 5, right-angled triangle. And in Freemasonry, this triangle is known as the gallows square, a square that is always true because its 90-degree angle is always accurate and is used to test whether a master's tri-square is truly square or not. A tri-square is shaped like a letter T and is represented by the letter T prominently positioned in a page that is designed cryptographically. It's one way to recognize such pages. Such squareness, referred to as acting on the square, symbolizes moral integrity. The sides of the 3 to 4 to 5 right-angled triangle also symbolize the Holy Trinity, about which I have spoken in previous talks on the mysteries. The winged sun is an ancient symbol of the sun god, the light of God, as used by many ancient cultures around the world. In ancient Egypt, it was an emblem of Horus, wherein the wings were those of a falcon rather than an eagle, but they mean the same. Horus's Egyptian name, Keru, was written as 2 letters, KH and R, Keru, with the vowels unwritten, as in ancient Hebrew. Translated into Greek, the 2 letters Keru, KHR, become Chi-Rho, which together form the Christogram, the emblem of Christ. In other words, the headpiece or top panel of the Cryptomenytices title page conceals the ineffable name of God in the shadow of darkness, as the night scene picture in this top part of the title page illustrates. And not only this, the darkness, the fire, the wind, and the water refer to the statement in Genesis chapter 1, verse 2. And darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. The Spirit of God is a translation of the Hebrew word ruach, which means breath or wind. It is also known as the fiery breath, as it carries the word of God, which is described as a fire. In Deuteronomy, for instance, chapter 4, verse 24, it tells us, "For the Lord your God is a consuming fire." And in this quote, Lord is a translation of the Hebrew word Jehovah, and God is a translation of the Hebrew word Elohim. Elohim, as used in the first chapter of Genesis. In the top panel of the Cryptomenytices title page, the 4 beacons of fire can be understood as representing the tetragrammaton Yod He Vav He, which signifies the word of God, which is a fire. The first Yod He symbolizes the Father, Mother, Divine Father, Mother, and the Vav He symbolizes the Son and Daughter. Yod He Vav He, Father, Mother, Son, Daughter. And all this is a fire. And this indicates that the message which the courier in the boat is carrying is a message of wisdom, a ray of the word of God, which can bring light or illumination to the recipient of the message. Now, beneath this headpiece or top panel, or cryptically sub umbra alarum tuarum Jehovah, are the 2 larger parts, the middle and bottom panels. Because each oblong square is 8 units high by 9 units wide, it means that each of these 2 larger panels of the picture measures 24 units high by 32 units wide. When each larger panel is divided vertically down the middle into 2 equal side parts, each side part is 24 units high by 18 units wide. 24 by 18, when divided by 6, reduces to 4 by 3. Therefore, by drawing diagonals, it reveals that each of the 2 larger panels of the title page is composed of 4 3 to 4 to 5 right-angled triangles, in two sets of two, with each set of two triangles, one above left, the other below right, from the picture's point of view, joined together by their shared hypotenuse. This means that in total, there are 8 3 to 4 to 5 right-angled triangles in the two larger parts of the title page picture. Moreover, if we take the two larger parts of the title page picture together as one large rectangle, we can see that the diagonal of this large rectangle forms a further 2 3 to 4 to 5 triangles, one above left, the other below right, joined by their hypotenuse. So this gives 10 3, 4, 5 right-angled triangles in total, but with the 8 smaller triangles contained within the 2 large triangles. This gives the idea of the twinship of 2 that becomes the 4 twinships of 8, which was mythologized by the ancient Egyptians in the story of Atum, who consisted of Tat and Nun, who together produced the 4 sets of twins known as the Ogdoad. The Ogdoad are the 8 primordial deities or aspects of Atum, who is both Tat, truth, and Nun, the environment in which Tat dwells. The Ogdoad was symbolized as 4 male-female couples or sets of twins. He and Hehut, formless void. That means formless void, male and female aspects of it. Kekui and Kekuit, infinite darkness. Amun and Amunet, primordial air. Norn and Nornet, primordial waters. In other words, Atum comprises one set of twins. The Ogdoad, representing the potential creativity of Atum, comprises 4 sets of twins. The Atum Tat Nun Ogdoad cosmology was one of the 4 main versions of ancient Egyptian cosmology and was the one associated with the heart of ancient Egypt, the city-cum-temple complex called Un. Un, meaning pure existence, was also known as Kemenu or Shemenu, meaning city of the 8. And the Arabic name for the city El Ashmunan, is derived from the ancient Egyptian name Shemenu. The Greeks called the city Hermopolis, the city of Hermes, as Hermes was the Greek name for Tat, meaning truth. The Egyptian Tat, T-A-T, is better known nowadays as Thoth, T-H-O-T-H. Now, Atum the Absolute, who is both Tat and Nun, was named Elohim, nowadays pronounced Elohim, by the Hebrews, which is rendered into English as God. Elohim is a plural word and refers to Al, the Divine Father, and Allah, the Divine Mother, in their unity of love. Al is equivalent to Tat. Allah is equivalent to Nun. And they become heaven and earth. The first 2 verses of the first chapter of Genesis describe the same as that given in the ancient Egyptian cosmology of Un. In the beginning, Elohim created the heaven and the earth. And the earth was without form and void. And darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the spirit, or breath of Elohim, moved upon the face of the waters. In other words, the absolute male-female being contains and unfolds as 4 sets of male-female twins, 8 twins in all. And these 8, the Ogdoad, are the divine potential of all creativity. Moreover, each of the 8 twins, 4 male and 4 female, is also male-female in him or herself. Expressed mathematically, 2 becomes 4, 4 becomes 8, 8 becomes 16, and so on into infinity. This potential creativity manifests itself, for instance, in the natural division of cells. And we shouldn't forget that all this geometry of the 3 to 4 to 5 right-angled triangles can be reversed or mirror imaged, thereby providing another example of twinship, doubling everything up and thereby continuing the mathematical series of multiplication by 2, echoed on Earth by cellular division. This 8-fold design would also certainly have been the reason for Francis Bacon's second book of his 1605 book of the Proficience and Advancement of Learning, Divine and Human, to be expanded and made into 8 books in his 1623 Latin version, De Dignitate et Augmentis Scientiarum. These 8 books, which appear as books 2 to 9 of the De Dignitate et Augmentis Scientiarum, are called by Bacon Partitiones Scientiarum, which is Latin for the divisions of the sciences. And Book 1 of the 1623 De Dignitate et Augmentis Scientiarum is the same text as Book 1 of the 1605 Advancement of Learning, but translated into Latin. This Book 1 contains an essential duality or twinship. In the 1605 Advancement of Learning, this duality or twinship is referred to openly as divine and human, and inferred cryptically by the dedication to the king. The immortal king is divine, and the mortal king is human. Divine and human. However, the title king was bestowed on a chosen person who, as a result of his anointment and crowning, was considered to be the divine king incarnate on earth in a mortal body. The 1623 Latin version of the Advancement of Learning, the De Dignitate et Augmentis Scientiarum, does not refer openly to the twinship of divine and human on its title page, but it is inferred by the words ad regem suum, to our king. However, because the text of Book 1 of the 1623 De Augmentis Scientiarum is the same as Book 1 of the 1605 Advancement of Learning, but rendered into Latin, Bacon addresses King James in terms applicable to an ideal king, a divine human king. Text also contains statements of duality or twinship, such as its beginning statement. To quote, "Under the old law, most excellent king, there were daily sacrifices and free will offerings, the one arising out of ordinary observance, the other from a devout cheerfulness. Certainly, in my opinion, in like manner, all faithful subjects owe their kings both tribute of duty and presents of affection." Then later on page 8, a summarizing statement. To quote, "To conclude, let no one weakly imagine that man can search too far or be too well studied in the book of God's word and works, divinity and philosophy. but rather let them endeavour an endless progression in both, only applying all to charity and not to pride, to use and not to ostentation, and without confounding the two different streams of revelation and philosophy together. And then there's the ending statement on page 64. And that too will remain true, on which doctrine is always based as on the firmest foundation, which can never be undermined. Wisdom is justified by her Son. As Bacon explains in his writings, the wisdom he refers to is the Divine Mother, Sophia, whose son is the philosopher, the lover of Sophia, the wisdom. This is a twinship of the immortal Sophia and the mortal philosopher. It is also a twinship of female and male, with the immortal being female and the mortal being the male. This is akin to the Shakespeare poem Venus and Adonis, wherein Venus is the immortal goddess and Adonis is the mortal man. Elsewhere in his writings, Bacon extends the idea of one son to many sons of wisdom, calls them Folios sapientiae in Latin, whom he urges to love and serve wisdom in order to become true philosophers or lovers of wisdom, which the word philosopher means. For wisdom, as the poem Venus and Adonis shows us, always loves us and wants us to love her. Moreover, as Genesis chapter 1 tells us, man, meaning mind or soul, is both male and female. Thus, a son of wisdom could be a male or a female. It is worth noting here that this first book of De Dignitate et Augmentis Scientiarum consists of 64 pages, starting on page 1 and ending on page 64. 64 is 8 times 8, a chessboard. So again, the number 8 is cryptically enfolded. And half of 64 is 32, the number of oblong squares in the geometry underlying the title page of Cryptomenytices and Cryptographiae. And 32 is also the number of degrees required to climb the Kabbalistic tree of life, from Sephira number 10 to Sephira number 1, the crown, from whence one goes beyond into the 33rd degree. In such ways, the title page and contents of the 9-book cipher manual, Cryptomenytices and Cryptographiae, helps us to discover and understand what underlies not only Bacon's 9-book De Dignitate et Augmentis Scientiarum and the 9 mysteries, that's the 36 plays plus preface of the Shakespeare First Folio, but also the whole great instauration, the reformation and raising of all the arts and sciences to create a temple of light in the human mind and a paradise on earth, which is the Rosicrucian work. And this is a work which takes place cryptically on many different levels of understanding and illumination, both inwardly and outwardly, in thought and action, inspiration and revelation. So I'll end my screen share here. And that brings me to the end of this talk. So I hope you managed to follow it and enjoy it. Thank you very, very much. Goodbye.